Happy Halloween.
Dayton's ESPN Radio. Doctors recommend regular exercise to manage stress. We recommend that you just watch the Bengals defense. Same result. Elevated heart rate, yelling, "I can't do this," and the occasional tears. The Justin Kinner Show, your official cardiac clinic for the Bengals.
All right, we are off and rolling here on a Thursday. The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. We have a lot more to get into. College basketball about to tip off here over the next couple of days. Wright State and Dayton and Ohio State, Xavier, Cincinnati. The list goes on, and we'll be talking more college hoops moving forward. We got a college basketball story here shortly around the corner as well. More fallout from the Connor Stallions investigation. That came out earlier today as well. We have that coming up for you. Let's see. Joe Flacco, he did practice today, but will it be enough for him to take the sideline on Sunday as the Bengals look to get back on track after that unfortunate loss against the Jets? So we have some Bengals talk around the corner, and, oh, yes, the Cleveland Browns, despite the fact that they're on a bye week. There's still plenty to talk about as far as, well, what decisions they're going to make with this roster and at the quarterback position when it's all said and done. But, of course, speaking of bye weeks, Ohio State coming off of a bye week. And, of course, they've had 2 weeks now to prepare for what we thought was going to be a top 5 showdown with the Penn State Nittany Lions, of course. But a lot of unique things about this matchup. For one, it's not the matchup that we had expected coming into the season, but it's also the final time these two teams will play for quite a few years. And we're going to talk about all of that and more with our next guest, the one, the only, Mr. Paul Keels, who joins us every single Thursday to kick off the show. Mr. Paul Keels, welcome, sir.
Hello, Justin. How are you?
I'm doing good. I appreciate your time. As always, it's obviously reading and following up on everything kind of leading into this matchup. I did kind of forget about the fact that, yes, this is the last time that these two teams will play one another till at least 2028. It's kind of wild that we're going to see quite the gap between these two. We haven't seen that in quite some time.
No, and, this is the longest running continuous stretch of opponents that Ohio State had played. The Michigan thing ended in 2020 when Michigan opted not to play the game during the pandemic. So it will be odd. And, that's just kind of the way we go with these new expanded conferences. It's nice to know that it's not a permanent removal, but, you never know if it's going to change if the conferences change again, too, somewhere down the road.
Penn State, obviously coming into this matchup, I know we talked last week about it, but it is interesting. Like, Ohio State, they're going to get the best shot from everybody. But the one thing about Penn State, as we discussed, they've really had nothing go their way this season. And if they can do one thing and to make it at least seem like they accomplished something this season, it's to beat Ohio State. Ohio State, they always have their hands full with Penn State, but you just know, considering how bad things have been, they're still going to get their best shot coming up on Saturday.
No question. They've got players that can play at a high level, but injuries certainly have been a key factor, not the least of which is losing their quarterback, Drew Rattler, to a season-ending injury. They've lost one of their linebackers, Tony Rojas. I don't know what his status is for the coming weekend, but he's a guy that certainly has been a big part of that. And they just have been put in conflict with some of what happened. Now, having said all of that, they had a bye last weekend as well. Does that give Ethan Grunkemeyer, the young man from here in Central Ohio, quarterback, a chance to try and get a little more ingrained to what was going on? Because in their last game against Iowa, they had stretches, especially in the second and third quarter, where they were alternating quarterbacks on consecutive plays, both Grunkemeyer and Jason Smolik. So, now they've got two outstanding running backs. We know that in Singleton and Allen. Both have gone over 3,000 yards in their careers. But when you get behind, that certainly doesn't help, and it doesn't help them trying to pursue some balance on offense. So we know that that's going to be the thing that could have an effect on whether or not, if they've improved things on that side of the ball, that can give them any kind of a chance in this football game.
Obviously a big game. One of the other reasons it's a big game is because this is the final matchup before the first college football playoff rankings come out. I know Coach Day and really any coach, they're going to say they don't care about the rankings, but as fans, we do know how big of a deal that is. Look, Ohio State, since week one, knocking off Texas, and they jumped into that number one spot. They haven't looked back ever since. But I mean, with the rankings coming out next week, I am kind of curious your thoughts on Ohio State's resume to this point. They've been number one in the AP pretty much all season. Do you anticipate a potential shakeup? I mean, assuming Ohio State wins, but you look at Texas A&M, you look at Indiana, could you see the college football playoff wanting to do something different to differentiate themselves from the AP? Could you see another team that's not Ohio State potentially be number one next Tuesday?
No, it's a distinct possibility. I think you look at, and there are a lot of people who think what Indiana did going to Oregon and winning that game the way they did might be the single biggest victory that anybody's had this season. Texas A&M going to Baton Rouge and beating LSU the way they did, that's a punctuating victory. So it's possible, but, it's really one of those. And, what's Ohio State's signature win to date? It's over Texas, but is the bloom off the rose with Texas? That's part of the problem. But if you're the Buckeyes, all you do is just control what's right in front of you to get in there. But it's possible because of what those other two schools have done, and that's to their credit. But really, things will kind of play themselves out through the course of the year if Ohio State's able to take care of business all the way through the season, and including that game at the end of the year that's been a hex. Yeah. Get to a Big Ten championship, get a victory, in what many people are projecting and guessing could be an Ohio State-Indiana matchup. Then that'll take care of itself, you would think.
Yeah, and we got Paul Keels, by the way, radio voice of the Buckeyes, hanging out with us here. The Justin Kinner Show here on a Thursday. You talk about Indiana, that huge win they had, of course, at Oregon. But, Texas A&M's another interesting one. They had the win at Notre Dame. They just took care of business pretty easily at LSU. And also, they have a big game this weekend. They're going to be at top 25 Missouri, and they would have 3 top 25 wins all on the road. That's another team to look out for as far as a resume that could potentially give them the nudge into that number 1 spot. So a lot of interesting things happening heading into that first rankings reveal.
And then the other part about that, Justin, is the fact that Missouri is now without their starting quarterback. At least I think he's not playing this week. I don't know that for sure. Bo Perbula. So, that doesn't help Missouri's chance of trying to pull off a big win. But there are those who cover the SEC that have said for a few weeks now, they think that Texas A&M maybe has the highest ceiling of anybody in that conference. You can't argue the way Alabama is playing now, shaking off that first loss and really going through the gauntlet of what they've done and being ranked football teams. So, there's a lot out there. I think, Indiana really looks as though, and if Penn State is not able to make drastic improvements, you like Indiana's chances of beating them and going through the rest of their campaign undefeated. So, but, at the end of the result, you just want to get in. And we saw that from Ohio State last year. They got in as an 8 seed, and they were able to run the table. It would be nice if you could get to the number 1 spot or the number 2 spot and get a first round bye with what comes with that. But, all they can do right now, they being Ohio State, is just take care of what's right in front of them.
Brian Kelly, James Franklin, Gundy. I mean, the list of high-profile coaches just continues to hit the free agent trail, if you will, getting canned in the middle of the season. Have you ever seen anything like this? It's one, every once in a while you'll get a surprise firing in the middle of the season. I thought Gundy would probably be it, but that was not the case. I mean, this is snowballed pretty increasingly heavy at this point. I mean, are you surprised at how many high-profile coaches that we've seen get removed already?
Yes, but, as you think about it and as this continued to happen, some of this may be an unintended consequence of the college football playoff. LSU with that loss, it pretty much sinks any chance of them getting in the playoff. You can say that with some of the other cases. And what it does now is it gives those schools that have decided to make that tough decision to make a change, it gives them a head start in trying to search who they want to get. Now, that's the other part of this. What candidates are out there? You probably saw Matt Rule today just signed an extension with Nebraska. So he was kind of the thought to be favorite for the Penn State job. Are schools going to go the Curt Cignetti route and look at somebody at the FCS level? Are there going to be guys, from the group of 5 that are, because you've got great coaching jobs being done at South Florida and at Houston? Are there people there that maybe come out of nowhere and are going to get some of these opportunities? James Franklin's probably somebody that's going to land someplace. He seems, based on his comments, he wants to coach right away. You don't know if guys like Brian Kelly and others maybe sit on the beach for a year, but that's the question that now becomes more interesting. Where are these coaches going to come from to fill these spots? And if they come from other schools, what's the trickle-down effect?
Talked about names that, no one's really talking about. I don't know if you live on the social media space as much as I do. I probably do it a little bit too much, but I'm always obsessed with the rumor mills. Rumor mills are always fun, especially for radio hosts who need content, right? So
absolutely.
So when you hear a name like Brian Hartline's name get tossed out there, people want to bring up some drama with that potentially, but the bottom line is I think that that's well-deserved that his name's being thrown out there for potential jobs like that. But what do you think when you hear a name like Brian Hartline, who has slowly moved up the ranks amongst the coaching staff, a very successful coach at that, but Brian Hartline's name, a potential one out there as well?
And he's been somebody that's been talked about for a lot of things in that way. Justin, I think a lot of it has to do with his ability to recruit. That's what probably has him on people's radar more than anything. Then the other part of it, developing the receivers they have here. If you're one of these schools and one of these big schools with an opening like that, do you want to take a chance on somebody that's not been a head coach? And here's the good and the bad thing about Ohio State. They do such a good job of taking care of their assistant coaches that sometimes it's hard for some of these guys to leave their positions at Ohio State to go to other schools and make less money and be less visible as a head coach. So, you never know how the path is really going to go. We saw a perfect storm for Ryan Day. He was able to fall into where he is because of a suspension and a 3-game audition as an interim coach or as an acting head coach. So, but Brian Hartline's name certainly is one that's going to be thrown out there. You don't know if maybe his name gets connected to one of the openings or if he gets connected to another school who loses a coach because of an opening. But it's a complimentary thing that he's being thought of by people and talked about that way.
A couple games to highlight on the way out, Paul. Again, Paul Keels hanging out with us here on a Thursday. A couple Big Ten games to keep an eye on this coming up weekend. Obviously, Penn State at Ohio State. But number 2, Indiana on the road at Maryland. Indiana, a 21.5-point favorite for those who care about the spread. But Indiana looking to keep it going. If you're Indiana, Cignetti, you've been so successful the last 2 years. You've come so far at this point. It would be really sad for them to stub their toe in the final game before the first playoff reveal comes out next week. Indiana at Maryland on Saturday.
And that'll be an interesting one, too, because, the one thing Maryland has going good for them is the young quarterback, Malik Washington. He's a freshman that's played really well, but this is kind of the same old story with Maryland. They do well in the non-conference. They get in league play, and they have difficulty. And the thing that Indiana's done, it's not been just what they've done with their passing game with Mendoza and that trio of receivers and Roman Hemby, the running back, who, by the way, is a Maryland transfer. They played high-level defense. Yeah. So that's the thing that has made them such an impressive football team. And whatever he's selling, the Indiana players are buying. What Curt Cignetti is doing is getting them ready each and every week. And think about it, Justin. The 2 games they've lost since he's been the head coach there, at Ohio State and at Notre Dame in the playoffs, were physically, they were just a little outmatched. Just a little, not a lot. But those are the games that have gotten away from them. This team's playing with an edge. They're playing with a purpose. They're a dangerous football team.
Michigan coming off a couple wins, obviously a big win over Michigan State. I don't know about a big win, but a rivalry win. They beat Michigan State last week, and now they have Purdue coming to the Big House coming up this weekend, a 7 o'clock kickoff. Number 21, Michigan with Purdue in town coming up Saturday night.
And Michigan is doing what you would expect, running the ball very well. They got Justice Haynes back last week. He and Jordan Marshall running at a high level, and the scary part is what E.J. Underwood is doing at quarterback. He's continuing to grow. He's continuing to show that the raw talent that he has is getting refined. And, it's a Michigan team that is kind of putting themselves in a position to create more than a few headaches for Ohio State at the end of the football season. So that'll be interesting to see just if they continue to, Purdue's having their obvious struggles, but if they can continue to run the ball the way they have, and if Underwood can continue to develop his game at quarterback.
You mentioned Matt Rule earlier, who gets that major extension, but throughout his time at Nebraska, really doesn't have that staple win. They have a chance to get a staple win with top 25 USC in town at home on Saturday night. That's a 7:30 kickoff on NBC. Nebraska with USC in town. How you feel about that one?
Well, here's what Matt Rule has done, and it really was kind of pointed out with their win this past weekend over Northwestern. Nebraska now can win the close games. Remember, under Scott Frost and all that, they couldn't win the close games. They've flipped that script now. And you can see that Nebraska has improved. How much have they improved? And more than that, Justin, how much has Dylan Raiola improved? Because there were some games this year where it looked like he hadn't, but obviously he's an outstanding talent. And certainly it's got to help them just mentally that this contract extension is out there, that, his name is now, barring something unforeseen, out of the market as far as any of these coaching openings, namely Penn State. But this will be another significant hurdle for them if they can knock off USC.
All right. Ohio State, Penn State, we talked about it to kick off the segment, kick off the show. This is, again, a lot of people expecting a potential blowout, but we know how tough Penn State is. Your final thoughts on Ohio State, Penn State heading into the weekend?
Well, it goes back to what Ryan Day talks about. And his comments are, it's not about them, it's about us, meaning his team. And he also had mentioned Tuesday in the press conference, they expect everybody's best shot. He expects Penn State to play better than they have all year. And that's part of what has him keeping his team on edge and being ready for an opponent's best shot. Keep in mind, too, this is their first home game since October 4th. So there's some excitement about the fact that they'll be playing a home game.
All right, and I've lied. This is the final one on the way out. Paul Keels, you're invited to a Halloween party this weekend. You have to dress up. What is Paul Keels going for as Halloween this year?
Oh, geez. That's a good one.
What's the last time you did have to dress up to go to a party?
I can't even remember, to be honest with you. All right, here's what I'll go with, because a buddy of mine has done this, and he's actually, I've got some buddies that are coming over to my house tonight to help pass out candy. And this guy's got this goofy-looking giraffe outfit. He's about my height, about 6'3", 6'4", and it makes him look like a giant. So I would borrow my friend's giraffe outfit. How's that?
Paul Keels is a giraffe. There you go. I get called another animal. So there you go. So there's Paul, you the man, sir. Appreciate you as always.
You got it, Justin. Take care.
All right, good stuff. The voice of the Buckeyes, Paul Keels. You hear him, Saturday, Ohio State football, Ohio State basketball. He's a busy man this time of year, and appreciate that he gives us time each and every Thursday. All right, good stuff. We'll have plenty more to get into. I want to talk about, again, the coaching carousel, because I asked Paul about Connor Stallions. Not Connor Stallions. I'm sorry, Brian Hartline. We're going to get to Connor Stallions in a moment. Brian Hartline, a lot of the odds for, where he could land next season as a head coach keeps increasing. We'll talk about that shortly, coming up around the corner. Talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Flacco getting healthier, possibly, but he did practice today. We'll get to all of that and more when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Today's forecast, 100% chance of overreactions, heated debates, and a slight drizzle of hope for Bengals fans. Sorry, guy with Burrow jersey. You're listening to the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-444-9336.
Today's show is brought to you by False Hope Energy Drink. One sip, and suddenly you believe this is the year the Bengals get an offensive line, maybe even a defense. Warning, may cause midseason meltdowns and off-season excuses. The Justin Kinner Show, powered by pure, unfiltered sarcasm. And, oh yeah, the False Hope Energy Drink.
All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. The Bengals at home coming up on Sunday, welcoming in the Chicago Bears. The Bears are a 2.5-point favorite heading into that matchup, of course. And right now, I don't think it really matters about what the line says, because the line says that the Bengals were, pretty solid favorites against the winless Jets, or at least at the time, the winless Jets last week. That's no longer the case as we currently sit here right now. So, look, I think right now it feels like the Bengals season's on the line. I was one that truly believed that the Bengals were going to beat the Jets this past Sunday. I thought that the record would be evened up at 4-4. I thought they would have had the same amount of wins as the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I thought they'd be viewed as one of the favorites to win the AFC North at this point. That's taken a major hit, and the confidence of looking at the fact that they had the Jets and the Bears in back-to-back games before the bye week, it appeared that it was going to be enough to, getting Joe Flacco to ride the ship and take a 500 record into the bye week. That's not going to be the case, at least as we sit here right now, because they have the Bears coming up this weekend. They can get back to within a game of 500, back to within a game of the top of the division, but they have to take care of business against the Bears. And to be honest, I mean, this has nothing to do with the Bears. It really has. This whole matchup, when they go head-to-head on Sunday, it has nothing to do with the Bears. I don't really care about matchups. I mean, this really just comes down to who is Cincinnati, what defense is going to show up. And I'm not making it sound as if there's more than one defense for the Bengals. We know it's just bad. We know that the Bengals defense is just bad. But it's going to come down to more of who they are versus what they do against them, because, this week there's all the talk, of course, about the fact that, they had a players-only meeting on defense. You have Zach Taylor saying in the press conferences that, someone on defense needs to step up and take leadership of this, which that was the big criticism on Zach Taylor this week, is how can you look at a defense that has there's really not a whole lot of experienced, successful veterans on it. And you can't ask a Trey Hendrickson, who is going to be off the roster this year, to step up and be a leader. I don't think the guy that everyone looks at as a guy that's basically a rental for the rest of the year, I don't think anyone's looking at him and willing to run through a brick wall for him at this point. This is a guy that has spent pretty much the majority of the last 2 years spending more time telling everyone why he wants out more than focusing on what's there. Now, not all his fault. We know the faults of the Bengals front office, so I get that. But for right now, with where we sit right now, I feel like they're in a position where this is going to have to come down to the offense almost being damn near perfect, which is why they are so desperately, so hard trying to get Joe Flacco out on the field this week. Real quick to go back to that defensive conversation, Zach Taylor wants someone on the defense to step up. There's no veteran players. You can't have Logan Wilson, who's also demanded a trade, who has also been sidelined with an injury. Yesterday, there was reports of him not participating in practice. I'm assuming with the trade deadline looming that it's not a severe injury, but when you are a veteran player like that, who's banged up, who is demanded a trade, you're not willing to go play hurt or play injured or play whatever. You're not willing to go be banged up and going to play this weekend ahead of the trade deadline when you're trying to get to a better situation or get out of the current situation that you're in, which is a backup on a bad defensive team. That has to be a tough pill to swallow for Logan Wilson, too, who has, been one of the Bengals' better players on the defensive side of the ball, despite all the flaws that side of the ball has had. That has to be very frustrating when you look around, you're the worst defense in the NFL, and you're still not being given opportunities out there. It just doesn't. I mean, it makes sense. It just doesn't make sense. And that's that at the end of the day, that's what's leading to his frustration. So there's no one that is good enough or talented enough to step up. It really is going to have to come down to the offense. James Rapine, who covers the Bengals, I respect the heck out of him. Don't have anything against him. I saw that he was going at it with people on social media pretty hard today, saying that, that the Bengals are bad right now because they don't have Joe Burrow. And I'm like, I don't know how you can look at a team that has been as electric offensively as they have the last 2 weeks without Joe Burrow and say that not having Joe Burrow is the problem. Look, James knows way more about the Bengals than I'll ever know. I won't ever question, his knowledge of the Bengals, but I disagree with him wholeheartedly. There is no way in hell you can tell me, okay, that you can guarantee that the Bengals would have won that game against the Jets if Joe Burrow is the quarterback. 38 points was put up on the board. You can't guarantee that Joe Burrow would have won those football games, mainly because Joe Burrow lost those same type of games last year. Joe Burrow lost those same types of games last year. It wasn't until they beat Denver late in the season last year in a shootout like that where it was like, oh, yeah, finally they win a close one. How many close games did they lost to the Ravens multiple times in those shootouts with Joe Burrow making mistakes late in those games, but he was why they even had a chance to win it. So you can't convince me we watched Joe Burrow lose those types of games all the time last year. So you can't sit there and say that. I just disagreed with him wholeheartedly on that. There's just no way you can sit there and call some of the Bengals fans names the way he was and sit there and act like Joe Burrow would save all this. We have to stop the drooling over Joe Burrow to the point to act like we've seen the Bengals now miss the playoffs with Joe Burrow for 2 straight years, and it's about to be the 3rd straight year. The defense is the problem. Defense, and more defense. That's the problem 1, problem 2, and problem 3. Joe Flacco is not the problem. Joe Flacco, because here's what's happening. You have the Joe Burrow lovers. You have the people who are obsessed with Joe Burrow, who are getting defensive because there are people out there, and I do believe this is another knock against Burrow, not hating. It's just the reality of it. You can't replace Lamar Jackson. You can't replace Josh Allen. You can't replace Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not saying you could replace Joe Burrow long-term with anybody, but we're watching Joe Burrow be replaced. Like, this team has not regressed since Joe Flacco's taken over. You can go and replace Joe Burrow for a short stint of time. We're seeing it. The Bengals didn't lose because they were without Joe Burrow this past Sunday. They lost because you have a team that scored a combined 18 points the last 2 weeks. You let that team score 39 in 4 quarters. So that's the problem I have with all this. Charles, what's up, man? Charles on the Justin Kinder Show Facebook page says, the leaders of our defense were Jesse Bates and Von Bell. We currently have no leaders, no Pro Bowlers, nothing. I agree. And that's why when Zach Taylor is pressing this team, saying that somebody on the defense needs to step up and be a leader, that's I get it. That's coach speak or whatever, but it's delusional thinking. There's no way anyone on that defense, there's no one that is worthy of stepping up to be a leader on that defense. Nobody. So the players only meeting, I really want to know who was leading that. Because that's a good point, Charles. Like, they have had very, good veteran presence players in there over the years. You bring up Von Bell, you brought up Jesse Bates, but it's just kind of one of those where you sit back. Mike Hilton's another one. I was a big Mike Hilton fan. I remember when the Bengals got him. I did not like that. He was very good with the Steelers, and he was very good with the Bengals early on. He was another one that kind of got, pushed out a little bit, last year. But yeah, there's just no veteran players there. And like I said, you have Trey Hendrickson, but no one's going to really look at him as a guy that's on the way out and run through a wall for him. And Logan Wilson's demanded a trade. There's just nobody that they can really kind of lean into and count on to turn this thing around. So it's a mess. It's going to be a mess for quite some time. We'll see what ultimately happens. Chad Kinster says, I like Burrow, but in 2 games, Flacco has looked better than Burrow had in the games he did play in this year. Yeah, this isn't like a anti-Joe Burrow segment, although it does sound very much so like it. I was just bringing up some of the chatter I saw on social media, and I saw that James Rapine was going to bat for Burrow today. And I'm like, there's really no need to go to bat for Burrow. I think it's kind of ridiculous to say that the Bengals would have won last week if they had Joe Burrow. I don't think that that's the case. The defense gave up 39 points. Like, Joe Burrow would have put up big numbers like Joe Flacco did. I mean, it is what you put up 38 points. I mean, what else could you have the offense do? Put up 40 points, I guess. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say to that. But Joe Burrow did not look good in Cleveland. He did not look good in week 2 against the Jaguars, and that was before the injury. But a lot of you guys will just chalk it up to, well, he never looks good in the first couple weeks of the season. And I guess that's just another way to, I don't know. It's another pass for Joe Burrow. He continues to get passes. But I do believe that the success of Joe Flacco isn't a bad thing for Burrow, but let's not sit here. I think it's, when you look at the fact, okay, that you have Jamar Chase, you have T. Higgins, and you have the weapons that they do, it does make it a lot easier to replace Burrow's production than anywhere else. But then you look at these teams like the Ravens, who are Lamar dependent, the Chiefs, who are Patrick Mahomes dependent. The Bills are, obviously Josh Allen dependent. And to be fair, Lamar's hurt a lot, but Josh Allen doesn't get hurt. Patrick Mahomes doesn't get hurt. So they can be dependent on those guys because they could depend on those guys. The reason the Bengals can't be Joe Burrow dependent is because they can't depend on him. He can't stay healthy. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. He can't stay healthy. And on top of that, you don't have to depend on him because obviously, because you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, you could still depend on whoever you throw back there. Say what you want about Browning, but statistically, you want to know the only difference between Joe Flacco and Jake Browning at this point? Okay, the only difference between those two, as far as, statistically, they are identical. It's the 7 interceptions for Browning and the 0 interceptions for Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco has thrown 126 passes with the Bengals since arriving. Jake Browning this season threw 124 passes. Joe Flacco completed 81 of his 126 passes. Jake Browning completed 80. Joe Flacco has thrown for 784 yards since arriving in Cincinnati. Jake Browning threw for 757. Jake Browning has thrown for 6 touchdowns this season in Cincinnati. Joe Flacco has thrown 7 touchdowns. It's the 8 interceptions for Jake Browning that's the problem, all right? So, but as far as being able to produce numbers, being able to go out there and throw the football and lead scoring drives, Jake Browning could do that. He did it over the last couple of years. There's a reason the Bengals didn't want to part ways with him when other teams were knocking on the door trying to acquire him because he's a good backup quarterback. Now, he scared you guys all off, and rightfully so, because he was, we know how bad the offense did. I mean, it basically disappeared against the Broncos and the Vikings for those 2 weeks. But Jake Browning came to life in that game against the Lions. But again, it was the interceptions that scared everybody off. Like Joe Burrow, it's not like, oh man, you take Joe Burrow out, no one else can do what he does. Jake Browning does it, just he turns the ball over a lot. Joe Flacco's doing it. Like you can replace it. You can't replace Patrick Mahomes. You can't replace Josh Allen. You just can't. And Lamar Jackson, that's obvious too. Ron Howard says, are the Bengals buyers or sellers after Sunday? He says they are sellers. The Bengals just don't like making moves. The Bengals aren't going to be buyers because they are not good enough to be buyers at the deadline because they can't give up draft picks. And that's what it would take at the deadline for them. They're not going to trade anyone, as far as to be a buyer. Now, to be a seller, they would have to move on from Trey Hendrickson, but Paul Dehner Jr. reported earlier today that that's not going to be the case. Paul Dehner Jr. Reported earlier today that the Bengals have no intentions of moving on from Trey Hendrickson at the trade deadline, which is officially 5 days away. So that's kind of where we're at as far as that goes. And you guys know my opinion on that. I think that's wrong. So Charles Mitchell says, I think it's so weird that anybody is bringing up Joe Burrow for any reason right now. Nobody is questioning whether or not Joe Burrow is better than Joe Flacco. The defense is historically bad. Demetrius Knight may be a leader in the future, but he's a rookie. I do like Demetrius Knight. I think Demetrius Knight, the problem with that pick is that they picked him earlier than what a lot of boards had him going. So right away, people rolled their eyes at the pick. Like even when the Bengals select a good player, they do it in a way that, gets people to not be on board with it. His draft value was a little bit further back than where they took him. They kind of reached for him is what the draft analysis out there kind of basically summed up for him. But bottom line is he's been the only one that you can kind of circle and say his looks solid. But yeah, nonetheless, as far as the Burrow thing goes, like I said, it was just I was following the social media debates earlier today, and I just was shocked that some Bengals media who wants to be really liked by Joe Burrow is just doing the Joe Burrow defender things, and it didn't make sense for right now. You watch this team, it's not the offense that's losing them games right now. It's the defense. It's the defense. It's as simple as that. All right, 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. Again, 518-1410 is the number. I know some calls were coming in. I didn't get to those. If you call back to get your spot in line, I'll make sure that we take care of you as far as that is concerned. We have more college football to get to here around the corner. I want to talk about the possibility. Look, we talked earlier in the week about Brian Hartline. Brian Hartline, according to a couple polls out there, could potentially be on the move and is, again, skyrocketing amongst, up the list of favorites to land some of the big high, market jobs that are available at the moment. Can we potentially be seeing the final month, 2 months of Brian Hartline in Columbus? We'll talk about that more when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers.
Today's show is brought to you by False Hope Energy Drink. One sip, and suddenly you believe this is the year the Bengals get an offensive line, maybe even a defense. Warning, may cause midseason meltdowns and off-season excuses. The Justin Kinner Show, powered by pure, unfiltered sarcasm. And, oh yeah, False Hope Energy Drink.
You're listening to
Shop for the Pro Shop, Howard Music, 528 Miamisburg Centerville Road. Anniversary sale on now.
Family might not understand why you're still mad about a 2019 play call, but we do. 1410 ESPN Radio, where you can argue about sports without worrying about getting uninvited to Thanksgiving.
Justin Kinner back with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio, 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in, back in on the conversation. We'll get into some college football stuff coming up here in a moment. We'll stay in the NFL a little bit. So, real quick, I'm sorry, with what we're going to be talking about coming up when it comes to college football, I'm all over the place today. I can't mentally get right. My head's like scrambled eggs today. We kicked off the show with Paul Keels. Shout out to him. I appreciate him giving us some time. If you missed it, we'll have that again coming up for you here later on in hour number 2. But one of the big stories today, Matt Rule getting the extension with Nebraska, which takes one of the favorites to get the Penn State job off the books. And when you look at all the high-profile names that are basically available to take on some of these other jobs that have been let go, whether it's, of course, Brian Kelly, whether it's, of course, James Franklin or whatever, it's kind of interesting now because there's not a whole lot of coaching candidates out there as far as well-known names to fill some of these high-profile positions. And I will say Brian Hartline's name continues to skyrocket up the list as far as one of the betting favorites for one job in particular. We'll get to that coming up. So last part of the show, we're obviously talking about the Bengals as they get prepared to take on the Bears coming up this week. Bears 2.5-point favorites. I think that the Bengals season's on the line this week. I think that honestly, if the Bengals don't beat the Bears, the season's done. I've been trying to be positive about it, saying, hey, if the Bengals lose this week and then the Steelers lose to the Colts this week, it's okay. You're within a game and a half of the division still. They'll be fine. But if you lose to the Bears this week after they lost to the Ravens with the backup quarterback last week, it's like, well, what else? What else can this Bengals team do? They can't do anything. The only way that they are going to beat anybody moving forward is just by leaning heavily into the one strength that they have that really no one else has. There's not another offense in the NFL that has what they have, and that's the pass attack with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. A lot of people made a lot about T. Higgins. I do think we're overreacting to that. T. Higgins had 2 targets and was basically just non-existent. I mean, that's how good this Bengals offense is. You didn't have Joe Burrow and you didn't have T. Higgins produce whatsoever, and you still put up 38 points last week. This team can when they're getting good quarterback production without Joe Burrow even, they're going to accidentally put 25 to 30 points up on the board, and they accidentally did it last week. So it's just kind of one of those things where they're going to have to almost be perfect offensively because you're not getting better defensively. They're just not. In fact, you could argue they've gotten worse from week 1 to now. There was a couple of games where I think people were kind of fooled by the fact that they were forcing a lot of turnovers, and they have. I compared their defense to using a basketball analogy here. There's times where there are going to be those half-court defenses that are just stingy, that they obviously clog the paint. All right, they switch everything up top. They're big and physical down low, and they're not going to let you get anything inside. They're going to be, they're very relentless out on the perimeter. They're not going to let you get shots off. They're going to make you work deep into the shot clock. Those are those tough, gritty defensive teams, okay? Those are like your Chargers defenses, your Browns defenses, and defenses like that, like the Chiefs defense and stuff like that. Then there are going to be those really fast and athletic defenses, all right? Like those UConn teams over the years where they're going to, press you a lot. They're going to force you to play faster. They're going to, make you play ugly. You're going to turn the ball over a lot, but you're also going to score easy as well. That's the Bengals defense in the NFL, all right? That's the Bengals defense in the NFL where they're going to make you play ugly at times. All right, they're going to force turnovers, but they're also going to give up easy layups in the back end. That's what the Bengals defense reminds me of. And let's just be blunt, it sucks. Their defense sucks. If it wasn't for some of those turnovers, they don't beat Cleveland in week 1. Right? If it wasn't for those turnovers, they probably don't beat Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago. We could argue, obviously they put up 30-plus points, the offense did, but the defense still gave up 30 points, but those turnovers were big because with the way that the Pittsburgh was going up and down the field, they were scoring on pretty much every other possession on top of that. The Bengals have to find ways to force turnovers because it's really the only way that they can get stops, and that's really sad. Caleb Williams, I don't know what to make of him, but I know he's better than Justin Fields. There's a reason that the Bears moved on from him to get Justin Fields, and there's a reason that Justin Fields is on his second team since leaving Chicago since then. So, but they made Justin Fields look like a Pro Bowler last Sunday. So who knows? But this defense, it's really going to come down to, just the offense having to be perfect. But the Bengals lose this weekend, I think it's done because if you can't beat the Jets and you can't beat the Bears, you're not beating anybody moving forward with this defense being like that. And really, I don't care who the quarterback is because the quarterback production has been pretty stellar since Joe Flacco arrived in Cincinnati. Let's go to the phones. Charlie, thanks for holding. You're on live. It's been a while, sir.
Wait, is Justin Fields not the best quarterback in the NFL?
Is what? Oh, at least for those 4 hours he was.
I was there. I was like, this guy's incredible.
Look, I've been taking it easy on your Bengals this year because I feel like, man, the Joe Flacco storyline could be so interesting, and it started out that way, but then it was like what we saw last Sunday. It's what we saw all last year. This defense it's worse. I think it's worse than last year, and I don't think it could get worse after last year.
Well, it's definitely worse. And the thing that they did this offseason that I didn't want them to do was pay T. Higgins. I love T. Higgins. I mean, it's just not when we need it. It's just not the right move. It's not what people do.
Yeah, real quick,
Clearly.
Charles, on that, because people keep bringing up what the Lions did yesterday. Like, the Lions are able to pay all the guys that they did because they've been successful at drafting so many positions. Like, you don't get to pay T. Higgins what you did because you have so many other holes that you need to fill, whether it be through the draft or financially. I just thought that was a mistake as well. But I know everything is just, oh, I'm hating. I wasn't hating on that. I like T. Higgins, but I just thought that was crazy to invest $70 million into 2 wide receivers when you have such a bad defense. And I think that they thought that they could overcome it. And it's very clear the last 2 years that that's not the case.
Well, and there's way too much to overcome. The one thing I'll say, at least for the last few weeks, that maybe they've gotten lucky and maybe it's going to work out, is the offensive line has played better. And they do start 2 rookie guards, and they start a second-year right tackle.
Yep.
So maybe that's worked out. But there's no way you couldn't overcome the gaps we have on our defense. We had last year, we had no tackles, we had no linebackers, we had no safeties. We had maybe an okay corner, and DJ Turner seems like a pretty good corner this year. But once again, how good are our safeties? They're not that good. Our linebackers are rookies, so I like Demetrius Knight, but he's a rookie. And learn how to tackle. Like, what the hell is going on with that? But the reason I called in, what's going on? Why was James Rapine having to defend Joe? Like, what were people saying about Joe Burrow? Why is he even coming up right now?
Well, let me go find it because it caught my attention. It was just in my notes. So
Are like people saying like Flacco? Is it like, oh, he's so good, blah blah blah? Is it that?
No, they're not doing that, like turning on Burrow, but it was just James's, I think was disagreeing with this idea that that the defense is the number one reason that they're losing games. It's because they're without Joe Burrow. And I'm like, I would agree with that more if we didn't watch the Bengals lose the same exact way last year. Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
like the close game that they lost to the Jets, we watched that movie over and over. I felt like we were watching the same movie on repeat last year. We watched it against the Ravens. We watched it against the Chargers, like where they played great games and just fell in the final possessions. That's kind of what we saw this past week.
I totally agree. And look, week in and week out, like I think Joe Burrow, I mean, he's younger. Obviously he's in his prime, and Joe Flacco's dang near retired. Like, but what Joe Flacco did this past weekend, that's like college level. You score on almost every single drive.
Yep.
Like, what else can you do? I still go back to the 54-4, whatever it was, for the first 57 years of it. And the Bengals had the 90s. Like, they had an awful decade, but they still managed to win games that they scored 38 points in. And it's crazy. Like, I don't even know what the answer could be, because you hired the best defensive coordinator in the nation from Notre Dame. And it's like,
so you like that hire? I'm not trying to start a debate with you, but I wasn't a fan of it. It was more I was not a fan of moving on from Lou Anarumo, and now he's beating up on Al Golden's just a product of that. But I still think it was wrong to move on from Anarumo, because I kept saying, I don't think there's a DC out there that could have done anything really different with this unit. And we're seeing that it's the same thing, because they brought back the same damn defense. They just changed the coordinator basically. So yeah, that's why I was more against moving on from Anarumo than anything else. And we're seeing why. Look what he's doing with the Colts once you give him talent.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing with that is, like, we're going to all, like, whoever the Duke Tobin people are, I don't know who would be.
Yeah, no kidding.
But anybody who's like, well, it's the coordinator, and it's like, okay, maybe. I doubt it, because Lou Anarumo's had some really great defense in Cincinnati. But, okay, you want to fire Anarumo? Fine. Go hire the best coordinator you can get. And, I mean, it had to be Al Golden. Like, maybe there were other guys who were better. I don't know. I know he was, like, rated the best defensive coordinator in college. Now, whatever. That's a whole nother debate, because Notre Dame obviously gets better talent than, the Bengals are going to.
Yeah.
Like, if you're comparing college to pro, whatever. But what it really points out is Duke Tobin and the ownership of the Bengals not doing enough for the defense. Period. And like John Gruden said, he's like, no coach in the world could coach this defense up, to any decent level. Like it's just they just don't have the players.
I tell you what, did you take John Gruden in Cincinnati?
Well, look, I've been a Bengals fan long enough to know
that it's no chance.
Well, just because the first thing John Gruden's going to say is, "I want say in personnel," and they're going to say, "Well, see you later. We're done with this conversation." They're not going to hire anybody like that. John Gruden probably loved to take that job. You got Joe Burrow, but he would want control over personnel, and they would say no, because the Bengals, all they want to do is look smart at the table. Like, oh, look at this deal we got on this guy. It's like, yeah, man, we suck. This sucks. You know what, Justin? I don't know if I told you this, but people trash Jimmy Haslam all the time. If eventually he's going to get it right. I mean, that dude swings. He takes big swings. Eventually the Browns are going to get it right, and we're screwed.
Well, I'll say this. I've said this I've defended the Haslams as well. I hear Browns fans and people say all the time how bad of an owner he is. I'm like, listen, the guy has financially and with, of course, putting the right people in place to draft, they've built a consistent top 5 defense in the NFL for almost half a decade now. Up until the last 2 years, the offensive line has started depleting, but they built one of the best offensive lines in football. Throughout the Haslam era, they've had one of the best run teams in football. So they've had one of the best offensive line units, the best run games, and the best defensive units in the last half decade and some change throughout the Haslam era. They obviously can't get wide receiver and quarterback right. And it's like those two positions have made him look like a bad owner. And then the Bengals owner gets a Joe Burrow and then everything else wrong, or he gets the quarterback and the wide receiver right and then everything else wrong. Yeah, it's weird. They're the opposite. Yeah.
Right. They always get quarterback and receiver. They have, you go back to the 90s with Jeff Blake and Carl Pickens, like they always have a good quarterback and receiver. Like there's been a couple years like Achilles Smith and, back in the early 90s when Boomer left, Klingler. But for the most part, the Bengals have gotten quarterback and receiver right. And they love paying those guys, but then that's it. And it's like, okay, I heard that we haven't had a drafted lineman get a second contract since 2011.
In bowling?
That's insane.
Yeah.
Now, I think Mims will be that guy because I think he's trending upwards. And maybe our line in general is trending up. I'll probably just jinx the line. But we've been able to run the ball the last two. No, I agree with Joe Flacco. I don't even know why we're having a conversation about any of that stuff because offense last 2 weeks, even the last 2.5 games has been great. Competitive. What is the answer? And like you said, at the trade deadline, what you're gonna go trade for 5 starters? That's how many people would probably take to be competitive on defense.
Yeah.
And we're just not going to do it. We can't do it. Too many. It's so lopsided. I don't even know how many players it would take. I think we should trade Trey Hendrickson. I think we should trade T. Higgins and just go from there. I think Joe Burrow will be just fine with, a not T. Go draft a guy or what? I don't know. You've got Jamar Chase. If the defense can keep you in the game, they'll be fine. But this it's so lopsided. It's crazy.
Yep. I mean, and again, it's you get what you pay for, and you've paid for nothing but offense, and that's what you've got, and you've paid nothing on defense, and that's what you're getting. So it's unfortunate. But hey, Charlie, it's great hearing from you. It's been a minute, but appreciate you calling, man.
Yeah, man. Take care.
All right, good stuff. 937-518-1410, the Justin Kidder Show. Look, we talked about it yesterday. I said straight up, I'm like, hey, listen, it's one of those things where Trey Hendrickson, you have the worst defense in the NFL with him. If you trade him, you're still going to have the worst defense in the NFL, but you'll at least get more draft capital. And when you are a team that has as many holes and flaws as the Bengals do, draft picks are valuable to any team, but they're even more valuable to a team like the Bengals right now, who they have to try to find a way to increase the probability of landing on a few draft picks. And the best way to do that is to have as many as you possibly can. I think, Paul Dehner Jr., there's nothing against him. He just reported earlier today that the Bengals have no interest in moving on from Trey Hendrickson. At this point, I used to troll you guys. I used to make fun of you Bengals fans. I used to enjoy all of it. I'm not even enjoying it anymore. I just don't get it. I honestly, even at the peak of my trolling of you guys, never thought that the Bengals would screw it up this bad. I really didn't. I was like, I was kind of leaning into the show a bit. Like, okay, the more I kind of lean in to the Bengals stuff, they keep winning. People love dunking on me for it, whatever. I ain't doing that. They screwed it up, and they continue to screw it up. You could get a high premium draft pick for Trey Hendrickson, and they don't want to because they want a really, really good defensive player for the back half of the season on the worst defense in the NFL when he's not making a difference. And that sounds like a shot at Hendrickson. It's not, but he's not making a difference. This is the worst defense in the NFL. Well, they'll be worse without him. Let them be worse. Can it get worse? It just doesn't make any sense. They have to move on from Trey Hendrickson. I just think it's ridiculous. I don't get it. I'm not a fan of it whatsoever. But Larry Weaver on Facebook says, we all know in sports, pro or college, money buys championships. See, I agree and disagree at the same time. Money puts you, that's the Mets, right? Like the Mets consistently spend a lot of money. They're never in that position. The Browns spend a lot of money. They can't even get to the playoffs right now, although they technically have been in the playoffs more recently than the Bengals. So I get that, but that part's frustrating, man. That part's frustrating. Cincinnati, I enjoyed trolling you over the years. I ain't trolling anymore. I genuinely mean this. They screwed it up, and they're making it worse by being stubborn when it comes to Trey Hendrickson. Keeping him makes no damn sense. Send him. The fact that Detroit still wants to get in on this sweepstakes after the money they just spent on Hutchinson yesterday is just insane. San Francisco really wants him. These teams will give up draft picks. They will give them up to go get high-quality players to help them in position in the back end. There's nothing to help Cincinnati with. You need 3 or 4 Hendricksons to give yourself a chance to improve this defense. They're just not there. 937-518-1410. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Hour 2. We'll be right back.
Save big on everything for your next project when you shop at Menards. Dynaglow vent-free infrared wall heaters are
Press 1 if you're blaming the refs. Press 2 if you're blaming the quarterback. Press 3 if you're blaming the head coach. Don't worry, we've got you. 1410 Wing AM, the only station where it's safe to scream into your radio.
Hour number 2, we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. A lot of NFL talk in that first hour. We were joined by Paul Keels to kick everything off. But found this interesting. Want to go back to college football. We'll get back into the NFL coming up here in a moment. I found this very, very interesting. So earlier today, Matt Rule, it was announced that he accepted the extension that was offered to him by Nebraska. Nebraska has signed Coach Matt Rule to a new 2-year contract extension that will take him through the 2032 season, the school announced on Thursday. The extension includes an increase in Rule's buyout this season to $15 million from $5 million, which would effectively eliminate him from taking another job in this cycle. Now, Rule and his family's happiness at Nebraska, where he's in his 3rd year as head coach, was the primary driver behind him agreeing to a new deal, per, of course, ESPN sources. Now, Nebraska is 6-2 this year. Rule has led the program to its first bowl game since 2016 last season, of course, and he's looking to build on that this year. He has spoken frequently about the potential of the Nebraska program, but he's been speaking about the potential of that for quite some time. Now, Rule has been frequently, linked to the open job, to the open Penn State job, which is, of course, his alma mater. And his extension essentially, it basically just takes him out of that running, obviously, for obvious reasons. And the thing is, I've always said this, for one, good for Nebraska for getting it done, I guess. I mean, Matt Rule has just been okay. I mean, they're winning. Paul Keels said it earlier that the one thing about Matt Rule that he's doing that Scott Frost didn't is, Scott Frost and Nebraska were always in close competitive games, but they always found ways to lose them. Matt Rule in Nebraska, they're winning these. He just doesn't have a staple win. He doesn't have there's not a win that you could look back on and say, man, Matt Rule did that. Matt Rule is responsible for that win right there. And I think that's the problem with this is it's like, okay, Nebraska, Matt Rule right now, when you look at what he has done at Nebraska and at Baylor, I mean, he's a combined, here it is. I just found it. Matt Rule is a combined 0 for 18 against AP ranked opponents over during his last 2 coaching runs. And he just got a 2-year extension. He has a $15 million buyout, and I haven't seen this as ESPN's Pete Thamel that put this out earlier today. Like, I don't even know what the number, I don't know where he ranks now amongst the highest paid coaches in college football. I know he's not the highest, but I found that interesting. And on the flip side, I found it right here. Rule's salary throughout the course of the deal has about a value of more than $11 million per season. That number puts him in the highest echelon of college coaches over the course of that deal. That's wild. The 2 years that they added are about an average of $12.5 million, the same as the final year of his current deal in 2030, which remains about 90% guaranteed. Good for him. 0-18 against AP opponents. Now, I know that sounds crazy because they beat Cincinnati in week 1. Cincinnati, this is all on how you want to look at it. I guess they clearly base it off of who you beat at the time. But Cincinnati, they weren't ranked when they lost to them in week 1, or when they beat them in week 1. They beat Cincinnati in week 1, but they weren't ranked. Cincinnati is actually a very good story right now. We'll talk about them coming up here in a moment. But yeah, I found that to be very fascinating. The thing about that too, Penn State, you're moving on from James Franklin, who won double-digit games for how many straight years? They were in the playoff. They're regularly in the top 10. Great recruiting classes regularly. Like, you don't move on from James Franklin to go to Matt Rule. I don't care if he even is an alum. I find that, Rob Panel on YouTube says 0-18. Damn. Yeah. So Cincinnati's ranked right now, but they weren't ranked in week 1 when Nebraska beat them. So, like I said, I'm assuming it's when they play. But if you're Penn State, you don't move on from a James Franklin to go to a Matt Rule. I don't care if he is an alum. But if you are Penn State, who do you go after? Because you made a lot of headlines. In fact, Penn State started this mess. By moving on from James Franklin when they did, they started this entire mess. They created this problem. And it's like, I think they're going to look really stupid had they even got to Matt Rule. I would have found that to be very underwhelming as far as I'm concerned. I don't think that would have been a home run hire. You're moving on from a guy that was regularly in the top 25, regular in the top 10, recruited at a level to at least put Penn State in a position where they were the favorites to win the national championship. Let's not forget, and I think Nick Saban pointed this out, you had the expectations to win a national championship because of the work that you put in, that he put in. Matt Rule has not come close to that. So I just find that stuff fascinating as far as that goes. Now, where does Penn State go from here? Where does LSU go from here? There's some interesting names out there, but I found this to be very interesting because now there's a name that, and we talked about this earlier in the week, but now that we've seen Matt Rule off the board, it has increased the likelihood of this particular name being looked at as a favorite now, one of the odds-on favorites to land the Penn State job. So Brett McMurphy with On3 Sports tweeted out earlier today that with Nebraska extending Matt Rule's contract, the next man up, that is the favorite, that is the new betting favorite at about 40% to be Penn State's next coach is, of course, Brom from Louisville. That's crazy to me. That's wild. So, again, Louisville's Jeff Brom is the new favorite at about 40%. Now, Brom is at his alma mater. He left Purdue a few years ago, and he did a good job. You remember that Dwayne Haskins game when Ohio State lost to Purdue? I remember being at that game when Haskins threw the ball like 70-plus times. That was insane. It was one of the coldest, windiest games I'd ever been to, and you had a quarterback drop back 70-plus times. I mean, it wasn't Urban Meyer's finest night. But, Brom he did a fantastic job there, and then, of course, he gets the job at Louisville. And, by the way, Louisville's doing pretty damn good themselves. So Brom would be a solid hire, to go back to the Big Ten. It would be a solid hire if you're Louisville. Or if you're, Penn State, but would Brom leave his alma mater to go there? I mean, Matt Rule turned down his alma mater to stay at Nebraska. Would Brom leave Louisville to go there? I would say yes, you have to consider it because it's a Big Ten job. You need to at least kick the tires on it. But it's not Brom that I'm interested in. It's the coach, or it's the name that has the second highest odds of landing the head coaching job at Penn State. And that name is Ohio State's offensive coordinator in Brian Hartline. The three favorites, or the four favorites to land the Penn State job, Jeff Brom out of Louisville has the highest odds. Brian Hartline has the second highest odds. Drakowitz, again, over at Missouri, has the third highest odds. And then Matt Campbell. My gosh, can we stop with the Matt Campbell thing? I am so sick of seeing Matt Campbell's name, who has accomplished nothing at Iowa State. Why in the blue hell is Matt Campbell's name continuously being brought up? I remember when the Ohio State job, when there was talks of who could be the next Buckeye head coach, Matt Campbell's name was brought up. Matt Campbell's name is brought up for the Alabama job. I am so sick and tired of seeing Matt Campbell's name pop up on everything. My goodness. I mean, right now, and by the way, that's the other thing. Matt Campbell's name is constantly brought up for these stupid jobs. Right now, there's so many big-time open jobs. If he doesn't get any of those, we need to really just find someone who's in charge in Vegas and say, we need to remove that name from ever popping up on any list ever again. I'm so sick of it. I'm tired of it. I think Matt Campbell's one of the most overrated coaches in college football. I mean, he's always being thrown out there. There's my guy. He has a fourth. I knew. I was trying to get you the bat signal to come out. I'm so sick of hearing Matt Campbell's name brought up. It's every time. Every time. Kev Nash, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome.
What up, though? You're talking about sport.
You're talking about sport.
I was listening earlier. You going your tirades about the Bengals, and don't need to talk about those teams. Don't need to talk about the AFC North. There aren't any good teams in the AFC North.
Hold on, but David Shaw, how is he going to accomplish anything at Iowa State? That would be as if you are winning at Rutgers, or I don't know. Cignetti found a way to figure it out at the losingest program in the history of college football, Shaw. I'm pretty sure if Kurt Cignetti could win at Indiana, the losingest program in the history of college football, I'm pretty sure Matt Campbell, who gets invited to pretty much every single big job out there, I'm pretty sure he could figure it out at old Iowa State. I'm just saying. I won't yell at you, though. Boss.
No, I heard you talking about Penn State. So what would you envision for Penn State? Like, if you were like the AD there, like, what's your game plan?
Real quick, I'll flip this. Do you think they regret moving on from James Franklin? Not moving on from, I think they're ready to move on from him.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they regret moving on from him when they did? If they can go back, would they have stuck it out?
No, I think it has ran its course in their eyes. I think Like they basically put themselves up against a wall with, the retention of players and then the hiring of other big time staff members and obviously NIL and stuff like that. This probably was put in a position where like, hey man, look, man, we spending all this money, not only you as the coach, but other coaches and players. And now we're not even just losing the big game to like Oregon at home in a whiteout, but we're losing the game after that. And then the game after that, like something had to shake. And you can't fire the players, you can only fire the coach. So the coach is on his way out. So yeah, I don't necessarily believe that it was fair. I think that if I was in that position, I think I would have been in the mindset of like, all right, man, let me give him a chance to fix it. I think he's earned the right to have a chance to fix it. But obviously Penn State, they did not feel that way.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe being a little bit more well, and again, I also don't think they anticipated that they'd be the domino that would lead to all the big names that have now entered. Gundy, I think technically would be that. Gundy didn't make the waves. I think people expected that to be the case. I mean, they did not have a good offseason recruiting wise. They didn't really have any expectations. So that wasn't a ripple effect. The James Franklin one did. Penn State's a big job and it's a Big Ten job. So that's another reason. It's a Big Ten job and it's a high profile Big Ten job. So it leads to that. I mean, Matt Rule, would you have said that was a great hire? Great hire. Would
great
that have been
hire?
A great hire. If Penn State
I don't think there's any great hires in college football anymore. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that paying college football coaches these contracts that they're getting paid right now, I think that's going to come to an end. And I think that, we use the word collusion a lot in, professional sports, but I think these universities need to collude in a situation where they're not paying these exorbitant fees to the college football coach. This is a Jimmy's and Joe's type of sport. When you have the best players, you win the most games. Hello, Ohio State. Hello, Alabama. So you're telling me you're paying the coach, and then let's say, for instance, the coach does not recruit well and does not get said talent, and then they start losing. You then have to pay out their contract and then pay out all of assistants contracts and then go hire the next new guy. I think you find yourselves in a situation where you're just spending money and getting no return on your investment. I think we're about to enter the realm of like, all right, man, the coaches in college football are about to be paid like the coaches in the NFL. Like, all right, man, you're gonna be well off, but you're not gonna break the bank. Like breaking the bank out here for a college coach in my eyes is absolutely crazy. I mean, breaking the bank. So like, I like the guy at Vandy, Clark Lee. I think he's a real good coach, and I think he's able to, get guys to buy in. Is yet to see if he's been able to hit the recruiting realm. So I'm not hiring a coach that I haven't seen recruit at an elite level. That's just me. I'm not paying those crazy numbers. Yeah, you can coach, you can design up plays, you can get guys to buy in. That's half of coaching, but the bigger half is getting the Jimmys and the Joes. I'm not paying these type of numbers to get dudes to come in. I mean, we didn't see obviously Brian Kelly. That didn't work out. And I mean, everybody's, oh man, this is going to be a home run. Brian Kelly left Notre Dame to go to LSU. LSU always wins national championships. It just doesn't matter who's the head coach. Well, I guess it does matter because Brian Kelly didn't get it done. And Brian Kelly's on his way out of there. But we all know Brian Kelly's going to land on his feet somewhere. How much are you willing to pay Brian Kelly? Is Brian Kelly going to be down at Florida? Is Brian Kelly going to be one of these other guys that goes to replace another guy or something like that? I don't know, man. I just think the days of paying these coaches these crazy numbers, I think the administrations are going to realize like, hey, man, I'd rather put that money into the NIL to get the players as opposed to the coach.
So, and especially because when you're paying coaches a lot of money, there's usually an expensive buyout. So it becomes even more expensive at the end when it's all said and done. KP from Kansas City on YouTube says Penn State should have kept Franklin. He also weighed in and said that Florida, LSU, and Florida State are all better jobs as far as
better than Penn State.
Better than Penn State, he says. Yeah.
One more time. One of the real schools.
He likes Florida, LSU, and Florida State. He believes those are all better jobs than Penn State.
No, I would only say better job would probably be LSU. Probably LSU. LSU. I mean, I get it because of the state of Florida and the amount of talent, but shoot,
that narrative's been around for a while and it's not really doing anything.
Like, I mean, Jeremiah Smith, he's from Florida. Where you go to school at? Go to Ohio State. I mean, Alabama raids the state of Florida all the time. Georgia raids Florida all the time. Like, can you get those guys to stay in the state of Florida? Can you get those guys to stay? And especially in today's climate, you can get them to stay for their freshman year. All right, well, sophomore year, I don't feel like being here no more. I'm out. You know what I'm saying? Can you retain those guys? So I think that is an overserved narrative. I don't, man, I just don't know. I don't know what Penn State is going to do as far as his coaching search is concerned. What I do know is the person that's going to land on his feet is James Franklin. James Franklin's going to land on his feet. Yes, we can look at him not, quote unquote, winning the big games and everything like that, but we forget he had to win big games to get the Penn State job, and he was at Vanderbilt before the Penn State job. So he absolutely did something right to get that job. So, yeah, you look at a lot of these other middling programs or other programs that used to be super high up there on the total poll that had taken a step back. They're probably looking at James Franklin like, hey, man, 10, 11 wins a year. That don't sound too bad to me. We'll worry about beating our rival and winning the big games later. I just want to win the regular games. And James Franklin can provide that. And another thing is all these schools bailing on their coaches right now. There's more to come. I mean, Coach Prime in Colorado. What happens with Lincoln Riley when they play Notre Dame? Like a lot of these other dominoes are going to start to fall off as the season continues to go on. I mean, we got like 5 more weeks of football. And we already know that the hot seat is going to get hotter and hotter and hotter for a lot of these coaches.
Well, don't worry. We're going to see old Dion in Cleveland next year because they're about to make the quarterback change to all, to old Shador. Ownership will realize he can't play for all, Stefanski, and then it'll be Dion time in Cleveland.
Man, I think it's time that people realize that Dion can't coach.
Oh, yeah. But when you got a new stadium and you see the ticket prices that Cleveland just sent out to all their season ticket holders, what their season tickets will bump up to, we're talking.
Yeah, I saw that.
A pretty ticket. But
yeah, I mean,
prime time.
Are you paying to watch a coach and coach badly?
It's all about the brand, though.
Man, that's
the brand. That stuff
I mean, yeah, you're paying for the brand in Colorado, and you see what is happening now. You got 400 rushing yards put up on you, and then you see trying to buy a brand at North Carolina and the Tar Heels with Bill Belichick. I'm not into that, man. I'm into a player or a coach that can get you results, and the results are not there in North Carolina, and the results are not there out there in Colorado either.
Let's go to you. Got your headphones?
Yeah,
yeah. Let's bring on Mr. Shaw. Shawski, welcome, sir.
How you doing, buddy?
Chilling.
So, the Indiana job is comparable to Iowa State, huh?
When you can go to Indiana, the losingest program in the history of college football, and do what Cignetti has done, and then you have, of course, Campbell, who has done what at Iowa State again? I'll wait.
I would say the money. I would say the money is a little bit different, and that's the huge difference right there.
Really, the money that brought in James Madison players.
What are they paying Kurt Cignetti again?
Because of the job that Cignetti has done.
$11.6 million. They're
because
paying.
Of the
Iowa
job
State
that
is paying.
has
Iowa State is paying Matt Campbell $5 million. And they're in the middle of the country and and don't have a recruiting base.
And why is he there?
Matt Campbell is one of the best coaches in America.
Based on what?
Based on
some
what he has done at that program. What has he done?
What has he done?
You're acting. Iowa State was one of the worst programs in this country.
Indiana was the worst.
Congratulations. Indiana's paying them money. Iowa State is not.
Because he went there and turned it around.
You act like
Cignetti got the money right away. He didn't.
He was getting paid 8.3 before 11.6. That's not that huge.
Okay, more than 5.
Kurt Cignetti, he was making $8.3 million, which was higher than Matt Campbell's $5 million before
So let me jump in there. So for me, this is just my perspective. I don't necessarily think that it's yes, I still think it's crazy to pay a head coach that type of money, but I don't necessarily believe that, like, all right, man, the head coach, it's all the others around him. It's the assistants and stuff like that. Does your program have enough capital to pay the assistant coaches? And when you are at a Big Ten in the SEC, you are able to bring in more of that money because of your TV contracts. The ACC and the Big 12 do not have the same media contract as the Big Ten and the SEC. So those other coaches around them, yes, absolutely, that definitely matters for sure. And trying to get a program turned around, but also it's about the Jimmies and Joes. Like I'm a Matt Campbell dude. I like Matt Campbell. I think he's a real good coach. But shoot, at some point you do have to win your conference. You can't just be like, oh man, you're in the Big 12 championship game, or you missed the Big 12 championship by one game, or you had a big upset and everything like that. At some point, you do have to go win the conference because I mean TCU does.
What's James Franklin won?
I ain't won nothing. He won, but what, the Big Ten like once or
So
twice?
then why is he going to land on his feet anywhere?
I mean,
if we're going to use that we have to win something as the barometer here, Matt Campbell hasn't won anything in the Big 12. Well, James Franklin hasn't won anything in the Big 10 either.
Well, he has won the Big 10 championship before
on a tie. Congratulations.
Well, I mean that's different because
Shaw's in the mood today.
Like the sport has changed. The sport has changed so dramatically.
The sport has changed. I still agree with you that James Franklin is a good coach, but I'm using
how's he a good coach? What does he accomplish? What's he won?
Exactly. That's my point. I'm using the argument against it, but Matt Campbell's they're still very good coaches. I agree with Kev. James Franklin is going to land somewhere, and it's going to be a surprising where he lands.
Where do you think he's going to land?
Florida.
I think so too.
Florida. It's either going to be James Franklin at Florida, or the sleeper is going to be the dude out there at Washington because he went to Florida. And I think that I think he's going to be high on their list because I think they're going to want an offensive dude to come in there and get the offensive guys down there in Florida and try to get some of them guys that Miami's been getting and try to get that rolling there. The interesting one's going to be LSU and what LSU does. And I think that's going to be either it's going to be whether Lane Kiffin wants to leave from Ole Miss or not.
I don't think Lane Kiffin's going to leave because I think Lane Kiffin is going to be coaching all the way into January.
I agree with that is 100%. And that's my.
He may want to leave, but I don't think he's going to be able to leave. You can't leave a pro. I guess you can, but I would find it hard to believe that you leave in a program that potentially could be undefeated or one loss in the playoff. I don't think that he's going to do that.
I agree with that, but I also don't even know if Lane Kiffin's going to want to leave. Like, I think he's got it cooking at Ole Miss, and I think he could win one earlier at Ole Miss than what he could do at LSU. Now, I mean, I know the money's completely different, and I know the talent pool in Louisiana is completely different, but he's already got it humming there in Ole Miss. He seems to be happy. He keeps talking about how his family's happy and how he's happy, and he's a lot happier in his well-being and his mental health and all of that. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that he leaves Ole Miss on that job. The bigger one for me is it kind of goes to Kenner's point earlier, who takes the Penn State job? And I think the sleeper for that one's Brian Kelly.
bring him to Penn State. They're not gonna go for that, man. They man, the snarkiness, the you know what? You're probably right because I think that James, in their viewpoint, James Franklin was too laid back, too chill, and they probably want a guy that breathes fire and brimstone. You know, you always kind of like go the opposite route.
Right, 100%. I think the guy they really truly wanted because he went there was Matt Rule, and I don't know who else would be on their list because everybody else they're going to wait to see what Florida and LSU do. So Penn State's just going to sit around and wait. I don't see that happening either, unless it's going to be Matt Brady from the Bills, the OC from the Bills. I don't know who else they go after and get.
Brian Hartline.
Yeah, but does that win the press conference? Now, I understand winning games is way more important. And
Ohio State goes on to win back-to-back national championships. Yeah, I think that wins the press conference.
He can recruit.
How? Because he hasn't coached. He's never been a head coach. I don't see how that wins the press conference. Why are you so
aggressive today? It was just throwing out a name. That's what we're doing.
I got made fun of for stumbling over a couple words. I don't know. You tell me.
I mean, you got a couple. You got to like 7.
That's fine.
Don't worry about it, dude. I do it all the time, and I do this for a living.
It was like your mouth was falling downstairs. I mean, I felt bad for you.
Still explain to me how Matt Campbell's not a good coach because he doesn't have the same amount of money as Kurt Signetti. You think I forgot about that part? I haven't. Matt Campbell is one of the best coaches in this country. And
why isn't he somewhere else? Why isn't he somewhere else?
Because he almost took a big job last year.
Oh, almost. Man, hang the banner now. Oh man, this is at career day. This is my dad. He almost took the job.
He chose to not go. He chose. You're acting like no one's offered him a job. He chose to not go.
Who's offered him a job?
Texas A&M was high on him. He chose not to go.
Why? I thought he was poor.
He chose not to go. Not Texas A&M didn't want him. He was their first choice.
Look, if Cincinnati can turn around Indiana, I don't feel bad. I'm not a Matt Campbell guy.
Matt Campbell will go. I put it to you this way: Sherrone Moore gets fired. He's number 1 on my list. Number 2 is PJ Fleck. There you go. There's another hat list.
So out of these jobs, LSU, Florida, Penn State, Arkansas, Oklahoma State, UCLA, Virginia Tech, Stanford, Oregon State, Colorado State, UAB. If you had your pick of the litter, which school would you pick to coach?
LSU.
I'm straight.
LSU, and LSU is not even close because the talent pool, I'm coaching in the best conference in America. I have more players available to come to me. I have more money to use to get players. I have more money to get the best coaching staff in America. They've had 3 coaches since 2010 win national championships. The ball's already there to get started rolling. You just got to continue pushing it like Orgeron was doing. Tap into the culture, tap into what it is down there in Louisiana, and get that thing rolling. And they'll be winning within 2 to 3 years if it even takes that long.
Ain't that what we said last time when BK showed up?
Oh, no,
BK, you know this. You know you were on the show at that point in time. BK wasn't a fit. He never was a fit, and he never tried to. He never even tried.
He did.
Yeah,
he did try.
Thank God. I hope he lost his job. I hope he loses that accent.
I hope he loses his attitude and actually tries to be a human being for once. That's what
that ain't gonna happen.
No, it's not, because he was trash at UC, and he was trash at Central Michigan, and he was trash at Notre Dame. He's just a trash human being. But I digress.
Speaking of Central Michigan.
Oh yeah.
What?
I was waiting. I was like, old Spygate, old spy glasses. Yeah.
Maybe Matt Campbell can go coach there.
At Michigan State, I would not feel happy about it with me being a Michigan fan.
I'd feel fine about it.
I wouldn't be happy about it. Michigan State, he would awaken Michigan State like Mark D'Antonio did. Ohio State would have to worry about Michigan State at that point.
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't.
Just like they did with Mark D'Antonio. Just like they did. He would do Mark D'Antonio things and probably better at Michigan State.
Man, I know who you're going to be sending flowers to on Valentine's Day this year.
I'll dress like Matt Campbell for Halloween. That man, I'm telling you, he's going to, whatever job opens up, and I think there's 2 jobs he has a job, all right, but it's kind of like coaching at Centerville and Wayne compared to coaching at Lebanon or Kings High School. No offense to high schools around here, but come on, there's jobs, and then there's, you have a job. You know what I'm talking about. Come on, Iowa State is the poor of the poor. They don't have a.
I don't feel bad for him.
Why is he there? Because he got hired and he's doing a good enough job at Iowa State.
Good enough job. That's what Penn State wants. They want a guy that can come in and just do a good enough job. I tell you, that's a ringing endorsement.
They don't have the money Penn State has. They don't have the money Iowa has.
Then
they don't have.
They're
in the
away.
Have you ever been to Iowa State?
He should go take a job elsewhere. Then.
Have you ever been to? He has been offered. He didn't want the Texas A&M job.
Why hasn't he been offered? He's one of the best coaches in the country. Why hasn't he been offered?
He has been offered jobs. You're acting like he hasn't.
Okay.
He's been offered. He chose to not go to Texas A&M. One of the top 20 teams in the country, top 3 in America right now.
Maybe he just knows he's not good enough either, and that's why he stayed put. Because
he chose that. Yeah, he thinks he's not good enough. Come on, dude. You know these guys.
I think
they don't have the egos like that. They don't have egos like that.
But, all right.
He would take Penn State and be number 1.
You're boring
me.
Go
blue. Go blue.
Bye. All right. 937-518. In all seriousness, the real talk about Brian Hartline. What do you make about the you know me, I'm in the big, I love TMZ. I love rumor mills and stuff.
Conspiracy.
We had Paul Keels on earlier. I asked him about it. He just kind of laughed it off and didn't really go too much into it. But the conspiracy, apparently everyone's tracking flights, and apparently during the bye week, there's a lot to do over near Penn State's campus, and that's where Brian Hartline went to. Maybe he went to go spy on a practice or something like that. I don't know if those reports are accurate or not, but it's been all over the place. And, in a lot of sports books out there now, it looks like it moved up to he has the second highest odds of being Penn State's next football coach. I don't think it's a bad hire. I think that's an outside the box hire, and you could go back to the well and go to your Brian Kelly's and keep going to these names that just keep, Jimbo Fisher, talks of him making a return to football. He'll probably get one of these jobs, possibly too. I think if I'm Penn State, I think you buy more time if you go the route of a Brian Hartline or others, because you get that built. When you get the problem with a Brian Kelly is you're expected to win and win right away.
Mm-hmm.
I I don't think the Brian Hartline route is a bad move for any of these high-profile jobs that are looking to fill a job. If you're wanting to think outside, because we all know, yes, he needs to know how to coach, yes, but he has to go somewhere where there's going to be a lot of financial backing, and I don't just mean for his wallet. I mean for the NIL and everything else. I think Brian Hartline could be successful there.
Oh, absolutely. I believe that. I mean, he does one of the biggest things that you have to do in college sports is recruit. He's a great recruiter, lands the guys, gets them in there. And I also, we talked about this all the time about, when, all the big names in college basketball started to retire, the Jim Boeheim's, the Roy Williams, Coach K and stuff like that. I'm good with the new blood. I want the new blood. I want the new coaches to come in here because they provide new energy and a new way of thinking. You have the older regime stuck in their ways. I mean, you turn on ESPN on a Saturday, all you hear from Nick Saban is this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, 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 bad. Then you got Herb Street. This is bad, this is stupid, this is bad. You get these dudes have been on TV or coaching for 30 plus years when we've grown up with this. Hey, man, there's a whole bunch of other coaches out there that are in this game and that are able and willing to adapt to the way things are now and not stuck in yesteryear. So I'm 100% good with that. I mean, you think that Notre Dame isn't happy with the hire that they made with Marcus Freeman? They just made it to the national championship game. They're on a great winning streak right now. If they win out this season, they're in the playoff again. So he's new blood. I'm with the new blood. So if Hartline was taking a flight over to Penn State for an interview, absolutely go for it. I want him to get the gig and then lose to the Buckeyes next year.
Yeah. So who knows what will happen there? But like people, others saying there's no chance. I think there is a chance because some of these programs are going to get not desperate, but like they're going to have to go to an unconventional way of thinking of, okay, we're not going to get the win the press conference. You're not. I mean, who cares about winning the press conference? Win football games,
right?
Win freaking football games, and who knows? But
yeah, that winning the press conference stuff, man. I'm not a big fan of, man. Do your due diligence and find a guy that can get you guys on the field. Get the dude that can get the dudes. Because all these schools in the Big Ten and the SEC, they got the bank. You got the money. You got the money to pay him. I mean, if you got money to fire a dude and pay him out $60 million, you got enough money in the bank to go and retain players as well and to go get more players.
And by the way,
the guy that can land the guy.
After what everyone saw yesterday with the LSU, with the governor and everything else, that's not the best job right now. Everyone keeps saying that's the best job available. I'm like, it's no longer. And that governor's not taking politics aside. He's not wrong. Like you have an athletic director who has made two, but then like I look at the athletic director, the hires he made, Jimbo Fisher didn't work out, but at the time that wasn't a bad hire. You weren't for it, but everyone thought it was a good hire. Majority of people thought it was a good hire. Brian Kelly, that was still a good hire. It didn't work out. But at the time,
I didn't think it was a good hire. I didn't think he
like
would mesh well with Louisiana culture. That's the biggest thing about, college sports. It's not only, hiring the best guy on the market. In professional sports, you can do that because, you're only concerned about, the X's and O's and the players. With college sports, there's a lot of schmoozing that has to go along. You have to go to these booster meetings. You have to go and meet the fan base and stuff like that. And as soon as he did the fake accent, it was over.
Family.
It was over, bro. And they won absolutely nothing. They spent all this money, not only on him, but player retention and stuff like that, and portal players, and he got them nothing. Like, look at the LSU's defense while he was there, hot garbage. This year, they're good on defense, offense, hot garbage.
Can't get it
I mean, you can't get it right down there. Not saying he can't coach because obviously he was able to coach at Central Michigan, which landed him the UC job. They were undefeated, could have made the BCS championship game, but he bailed on them in an a-hole manner. Had some a-hole moments at Notre Dame.
I'm gonna tell my OM.
Definitely had some a-hole moments down there at LSU, and when he's the next head coach at be it Penn State, be it Florida, be it, I don't know, backyard state, he's going to have some more a-hole moments because he is a
jerk. He's a jerk. All right. I don't know if people could hear us now. Apparently, when you play music on the station, it drowns us out over the radio.
I think your OM should handle something like that. I think your OM should be sending emails on a daily basis. I think your OM should be trying to take care of that instead of hanging out with you on the radio.
The OM just sitting his ass.
Just hanging out, doing nothing.
Yep. But,
loser.
Apparently, we're supposed to get stuff. We're close.
I heard that before.
The processor's fixed. The processor is fixed. So there's that. But all right, good stuff. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. If you missed our conversation with Paul Keels, we have that coming up for you here around the corner as well. Still plenty more to get into. Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers.
Today's forecast, 100% chance of overreactions, heated debates, and a slight drizzle of hope for Bengals fans. Sorry, guy with Burrow jersey. You're listening to the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.